Hey,
Hey,
how are you?
good, good. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good, good,
How's it going?
good. Starting to feel better. I think last time I talked to you, I was
Oh yeah, yeah,
under
that's
the
good.
weather, but
Got it.
almost, almost fully back to normal. So,
Got it. Got it.
yeah.
Yep. What's new?
Um, Tried to schedule register for the MCAT, but um,
Mhm.
I don't know, it's a crazy mess. But hopefully, I'll get that sorted out. Been working on the Cubic,
Oh,
Jack Weston.
the content
So
diagnostic, right?
exactly, yeah, yeah. Um, so I'm like halfway through the BB, the that, and then I think from our next session I should be at least done with 2/3 of it. That's my plan.
Mm-hmm. Of the entire thing?
Yeah, yeah,
Got it.
yeah,
You said that you're in the BB one. Is that the first thing that you're doing?
yeah. Like it's the one that's like 166 questions. Like
Mm.
the
Got it. Um, okay. Let's see. Uh, so anything, well, I guess, um, so that's the first one that you're doing, right?
yeah,
The
yeah,
BB one? Okay.
yeah.
Um, but you're still doing it. So I'm trying to think of what we can do for today. Oh, wait. Did we talk about doing cars today?
You didn't set a specific date, but you definitely mentioned that we want to
Yeah. So
run through
since,
that as well.
so since you're like in the middle of doing the content diagnostic, um, means that we don't really know which ones to kind of go over yet, right? So, unless you've finished like one of them, like the CP one or Psych Soc one, but you haven't, right? You're just doing the BB one first. Okay. Then yeah, we can do some car stuff.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. Um, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do a cars passage together. So, do you want to do one from AAMC or do you want to do one from Jack Weston?
Um, I guess double AMC just to
So, yeah, you can log into your AMC
oh, okay.
Prep Hub and you can open up one of the cars Q packs or diagnostic tool or something.
Okay. Okay. And you said car diagnostic tool.
We can do that.
Okay. Okay. Is it right here or
Uh,
practice or over here at the practice?
so you can hit step two passage sets and let's see. Yeah, okay. Is this a passage you'd like to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So let's see if so you don't have the Jack Weston Chrome extension, right?
I do. I don't know if I have it on this. This is my work computer. I have it on my
Oh,
personal computer.
got it.
Sorry. Yeah.
So So you don't have it on this, right?
Correct, correct.
Okay, okay. So yeah, so I guess next time we can use that because it just lets you see it in a better format, like what it would look like on the MCAT. But yeah, we can keep this format for this. So this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to have you read out loud slowly, and as you as you read, you know, like your whichever sent like as you read like each sentence, after each sentence, tell me like in your own words what that sentence is talking about. And what we're looking for in cars is arguments. We're looking for arguments. Other words for arguments can be like claims or assertions or ideas or things like that. But cars is all about arguments. You want to be aware of what the arguments are. You want to be aware of who's making the arguments, and you want to be aware of any support, what support, if any, is given for the arguments. And um, and I'm going to be highlighting things in different colors. Like I know you can't do that on the test, but for instruction purposes, I'm going to highlight like arguments in green, um, evidence if that's given in orange, and something called a contrast word, which is something like uh, but, however, although, despite, words like that, contrast words, I'm going to highlight in pink. And what we're going to do is we're going to, go paragraph by paragraph essentially. And for each paragraph, uh, we're going to write down whatever arguments exist for any given, paragraph. And we're basically going to do that for the passage. And then when we reach the end of the passage, we're going to look for the main idea. And the main idea is defined as any argument that's appearing in more than one paragraph. And that's what we're going to do. So, yep. So yeah, you can start off.
Excuse me. Sorry. Okay. Many theorists have speculated on the relationship between technology and the expansion of literature.
Okay. So that's saying what?
Um, that I guess there's not like an agreement on the connection between technology and literature. Like everybody has their kind of opinion on
Yep.
that relationship.
hmm And so, yeah, you'll see me highlight things like, so like the thing about highlighting is that most of the time people highlight too much. And if you highlight too much, it takes the point out of highlighting. So you're going to see me highlight just like nouns for the most part. Nothing like grammatical. Like I'm not going to highlight that. But you'll kind of see like like the stuff that I highlight. If you just read it, I call it like caveman speech. It's kind of like how a caveman would speak, but it'll just be so. For instance, for this sentence, we're saying that there's lots of theories, right, about the relationship between technology and I know you said literature, but they're saying expansion of literature, so I'm gonna highlight that. And so you see that what I highlighted is just relationship, technology, expansion, literature. So that's the relationship that we're going to like investigate. And yeah, there's different theories or speculation about this relationship. And so this is going to be considered a new idea or a new argument because it's the first sentence of the passage. It can't be because I should have said so any sentence could be classified as either new idea, same idea, or like a modification of an idea. but it's typically going to be like either new idea or same idea. And since this is the first sentence, it can't be the same idea. So it must be a new idea. But yeah, that's what we see here for the argument so far.
Okay. What was the thing again? Sorry, about the new idea, same idea again. Sorry, one more time.
Oh yeah. So yeah, new idea, same idea. There could also be like if you're modifying an idea, that can be called like an add-on, but for the most part, it'll be like new idea, same idea. And usually and if it's same idea, it'll usually be like elab, like elaboration on that same idea. Um, and also whenever you see a new idea, um, what when I see a new idea, what I think in my head, as if I'm talking to the author, is what do you mean by that? So far the author is saying that there's different theories about the relationship between technology and expansion of literature. I'm thinking in my head, what do you mean by that? And so the author should elaborate on that.
Got it.
Hmm.
And is this literally how you're highlighting on test day? Like if you were actually, or this is just more so for teaching purposes? Or...
Oh yeah, it's mostly like for instruction purposes, but you will see that the stuff that I highlight is going to function as a version of what we're going to write on the side, which is going to be called a map. So what I highlight, you can kind of see because basically whenever we do this together, like we're gonna write the map together, and I'm gonna like highlight stuff. And at the end of basically when we get to the this paragraph down here, uh, since scrolling will mess it up, I'm basically gonna have you take a screenshot once we reach that point. Um, and then we're going to scroll down and we're going to highlight stuff and I'm going to let you take a screenshot there as well. And so you'll kind of see, and you'll also take a screenshot of the map. And so you'll see like, if you look at your screenshots that the map is kind of like, or the highlights kind of function as like a pseudo map. So they can kind of work, uh, for the same, purposes. But, but yeah, so far, what the main focus is going to be on will be making the map, but you'll with time as you practice, if you learn to like highlight like this, then that can also function as kind of like a map. So yeah.
So, one group views social change as a catalyst for both technological and literary developments.
Okay.
Another, oh,
Oh yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I guess like I said sentence, but a lot of times you'll have really long verbose sentences, and it's okay to analyze those long sentences like up to the first comma or like up to the first semicolon, and then the rest of it you can analyze that way. So far here before this first semicolon, what are we saying?
we're kind of seeing one side of the coin.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
yes,
yep. And what is that side saying?
um, they're saying that social change is what's causing the this technological and literary advancements.
Hmm. Yep. Good. So yeah, so like one group views this relationship with social change being the primary cause of both technological developments and literary developments. Okay.
Another argues that technology leads to evolution of both society and literature.
Okay. What is this saying?
So this is the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Um, they're saying that technology by itself looks like is causing the uh, advancement of society and literature.
Mhm. Good. So some one group thinks that social change is what causes this advancement in technology and literary literature. But another group thinks that technology is what causes the advancement of society and literature. Okay.
A frequently cited example of the literature technology relationship is the advent of the novel, perhaps the only literary genre that is unequivocally a product of the medium of print.
Okay, what's this saying?
So they're giving now an example,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to back up one of the arguments, like the two coins, I guess. I think this is one of my problems. Is like I'll read things, and it's just like it doesn't like register. So
Mm-hmm.
this is helping, but
Yeah, so yeah, as you practice putting things in your own words, that's going to help you not have that problem. Because it's a common problem. Like, because it's like, if you're reading it, it's like, okay, but what did I just read, kind of, right? But yeah, you're going to be putting things in your own words, and that's going to help a lot with, you know, comprehension of what they're saying, and also get you used to. So, like, another thing is that a lot of times the number one issue that students have is they read the passage too quickly without really understanding it, and they read the question stem too quickly, also without understanding it. And then they frantically search through the passage for words that match words in some answer choice. And that's usually how you get the trap answers. And you'll kind of see that as we continue to work together on cars. You'll see and you'll get to the point where you not only can figure out what's the right answer, what's the wrong answers, but also is the right answer right? Why are the wrong answers wrong? And also what the trap answers are. Like, the answers choices that they want to trick you into choosing. And that those will typically be ones that use exactly the same language, but a lot of times the right answer will use will use different words to mean the same thing. But yeah, so okay, so you said, so for this sentence here, what are they saying?
a frequently cited example of the literature technology relationship is the advent of the novel, perhaps the only literary genre that is unequivocally a product of the medium print.
Hmm.
So they're saying, so I guess maybe not so much a evidence of one coin or the other, but it's just a commonly used example of how maybe from a global perspective this is happening, how this literary technology relationship is happening is evidenced by the novel.
Okay.
Maybe that's a bad explanation, but I'm thinking this doesn't seem to me like it's arguing in one way or the other, but it's just used as example frequently for this whole kind of main idea of the technology literature relationship.
Hmm. Yep. And so since it's like an example, I used orange to highlight it. And so now in the map, what we're going to write is, so I wrote it down for paragraph one here. I wrote that, so I wrote rel, meaning there's a relationship between technology and literature. And then I put a semicolon, and I said some people, I mean, I didn't say write some people, but I wrote social change, or like some people believe that social change is what causes development in technology and literature. That's one group. And then another group says that technology is what causes, development of society and literature. And then we have an example, which is a novel as being a product of the medium of print, or the print medium. And that might not, know what that means exactly yet, but at the very least, we can say that this is an example that they're using here. And that's pretty much it. So we see for paragraph one, we just talked about there's a relationship between tech and lit, and some people think that social change is what causes advancement in tech and literature, but some other people think that technology is what leads to advancement of society in literature. And then we just have the novel, which is an example of something like this.
Okay.
Mhm.
It seems like a strong word there, unequivocally.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, though this sentence doesn't seem you're saying, it doesn't seem like it sides one way or the other kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry. Okay. So, yet Watt's account of the rise of novel stresses not technological change, but the growth of a reading public as fundamental to the 18th century literary innovation.
Okay. Now we're starting off here with a contrast word. So, and when you see a contrast word, like tell me like out loud.
Sure.
Um, but so what so like yeah, a contrast word will be a word like yet, although, however, but, despite, words like that, right? And so why are they important? They're important because anytime you see a contrast word, it means that what's going to come after the contrast word will be different from what comes before the contrast word. And a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, that what comes after that contrast word will be close to what the author believes. But this isn't always. Um, but a lot of times the thing after the contrast word would be kind of the author's opinion, and we want ultimately to figure out the author's argument. So that's why you will see lots of arguments, but that's why we want to know not just what the arguments are, but who's making the arguments. So yeah, so we have our contrast word here. So we know already that this is going to be something different from what we've been talking about so far, right? Okay. And now we have also a name, right? Watts or Watt, I guess. And what is this? What is he saying here?
He's giving his perspective on this, and he's saying
Mhm.
uh, the the it's more so the rise of the novel stresses, and as opposed to technological change.
Uh-huh. So so since we have our contrast word here, and we want to know what is this going to be in contrast to? Like, because it could be like in contrast to any of the things that we talked about in the first paragraph, right? Um, but what we talked about, like kind of like three or maybe four things in that first paragraph. We said there's a relationship between technology and literature, or expansion of literature. Some people think social change is what causes it. Some people think that technology is what causes it. And then we say that the novel is something that's a good example of this relationship between literature and technology. Which of those arguments, I guess, are we referring to now when we talk about why?
It seems almost like a third kind of argument. It seems like he's saying there's the kind of novel. Like he's not even crediting technology at all, because it seemed like the other two were.
Oh, so like
Oh, sorry.
which argument, I guess, in the first paragraph are we referring to when we talk about what?
Oh, it's actually you're saying. Got it.
Mhm.
I think this second one. Is it the second one?
Um, so it
Oh,
says Watt's account of what?
the novel stresses.
The novel, right?
Oh, the new stresses.
Hmm.
Oh,
Wait. When you said novel, like we're using
oh,
it as an adjective.
okay, okay, got it. Oops. Okay.
So so yeah, what are we referring like what are we yeah, referring to here? We're referring to what's said about the novel, right? In paragraph one.
Okay. Okay.
Like this is referring to that argument about the novel, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
So 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 like yeah, so yeah, it'll be like so this contrast word is going to be like what comes after will be different from what comes immediately before in this case. I mean, in general, it can be any of those things, but in this case, you see how it says, yet Watt's account of the rise of the novel. So we're talking about specifically what was immediately said before, which was the novel being this uh, example of the literature technology relationship and how it's a product of the medium of print. And when we read that, maybe we weren't able to see what that meant. But if we're saying that what, when we're talking about the rise of the novel, it does not stress technological change, right? Right.
Yeah.
So, so if we have, let's say what we said about the novel at the end of paragraph one is an unknown, let's say it's like X. And then we have our contrast word, and then we're saying afterwards that novel is not something due to technological change, right? That must mean that this thing that we put as X as an unknown, meaning what is being said about the novel in paragraph one, must be perhaps that novel is due to a technological change. Because then that contrast word would make sense, right?
Mhm.
Because if what comes before the contrast word is the same as what comes after, then you wouldn't be using a contrast word, right? You would say like more so, or you would, just use any type of transition. But since we have a contrast word, it means that. So I guess when I was saying like something that comes after is different from something that comes before, but most of the time it'll be something that comes after will be like the opposite of something that comes before, right?
Yeah.
So so if we have our contrast word and we're saying that Watt thinks that the novel is not the rise of the novel is not due to a change in technology, that must mean that what's being said here in paragraph one about the novel is that it's due to a change in technology, right?
Yeah. I almost wanted to like
Hmm.
combine these paragraphs together
Hmm.
because that kind of I guess that tripped me up because it's like a new paragraph, it's like a new idea.
Yep.
But based off what you're saying makes total sense to me
Hmm.
now with the
Yeah.
contrast word.
Yeah. Because if that contrast word was not here, then, well, they would probably use something like transition word, like mm, more so, or then, or maybe they won't use a contrast word, or maybe they won't use a transition word at all. Like it just say Watt's account of the rise of the novel or whatever. But yeah, we want to see that if we have a transition word or a contrast word, that it's going to be like in reference to what came before. So, and if we didn't understand exactly what they meant when they said what came before, which is that the novel is a product of the medium of print, like if we didn't understand that, now we know that they're really saying in paragraph one that the novel is a product of technological change. Because what comes after the contrast word says that it's not a product of technological change, right? So that's like a way that um a contrast word can help you figure stuff out about what they're saying if we didn't know what they were saying from just what they said alone. So yeah, so we have contrast word. What says that the rise of the novel is not due to, technology, um, but due to what?
But due to just like interest in like reading, like
Huh?
like
Growth of a reading public.
is this a word that you would? Is this like a what do you call it?
Oh, uh,
Trans.
so contrast words would be only if it starts a sentence off.
Oh, okay, okay.
I mean, like technically, like contrast words could be literally anywhere, but the ones that I stress would be ones that are at the beginning of the sentence. Yeah. So okay. Watt is saying that the novel is not really a product of technology, but the novel is a product of, I guess, growth in a reading public, right? Now, so we have like a bunch of kind of like different words here that we can maybe take to mean the same thing because so far we've talked about literature changing and we've talked about technology changing. And we've also talked, what's the other thing that we talked about changing?
Um, print? No.
So we have technology that can change, literature
Literature.
that can change. What else?
Oh, sorry. Like the growth of reading. Does that count? Or
Social
like
change?
what's that?
Social change,
Social change. Okay.
right?
Social
Like
change. Okay.
because we've talked about um like tech, literature, but also social stuff, right? Social change or
Okay.
society, right? So so uh so now if Watt is saying that the rise of of the novel is due to the growth of a reading public, what do you think that would fall under? Technology, literature, social change?
Be like a social change. People are
Hmm.
changing their like actions, like habits, kind of.
Hmm. Yeah, or something, vaguely is being changed in society, right? Now, like, yeah, I don't expect you to like catch all this right away, but that's kind of like the good part about cars. Like a lot of times if you don't understand something, like for instance, the last sentence of the first paragraph talked about the novel, right? And when we read it, we weren't really sure what they meant, like product of the medium of print, right? But it's okay because if you didn't understand it right away, they'll likely elaborate on it later. And later they say that, the novel is not due to a technological change. So what's being said in paragraph one is probably then saying that it's due to a technological change, right? But Watt thinks that it's due to the growth of a reading public. And, we kind of want to like be able to put things in different categories as we read them. And it's okay if like right away we don't know that growth of a reading public is an example of social change. But I do want you to see that we've talked about technology changing, literature changing, and social or society changing. And it's more likely that growth of a reading public will fall under one of those three than being something completely new. But if we didn't see that right away, we'll definitely kind of see it as we continue to read. That's usually what'll be the case for cars. So, oops. All right. So, um, okay. So we're saying here that according to Watt, the rise of the novel. So he at least agrees that the novel is something that's new, right? But he does not think that it's due to a change in technology, but he thinks that it's due to a growth in the amount of people, I guess, that read. Um, and that can be like a social change. Um, and then he says that that's fundamental to the 18th century literary innovation. So we also see that technological change is mentioned, literary change, aka innovation, is mentioned. So that can also help us narrow it down to a social change being equal to like the growth of a reading public. Um, but but yeah, does that kind of make sense so far?
Yeah, makes sense. And then like in my mind, I'm starting to think like, okay,
Hmm.
what is causing this reading growth, like growth of reading? I don't know if that's something that you start to predict what they're gonna talk about or something. Or I don't know if that's a tech.
I think so far, yeah, they could possibly talk about that, but I think so far this is mostly going to be like because so far we've seen one group views social change as a catalyst, another group thinks that technology is a catalyst. So we seem to be now just putting names to those different views. So so Watt seems like an example of this one group who views social change as the catalyst. So I think that that is what they're saying here. Um, but yeah, you can continue.
Um, Similarly, uh, it doesn't seem like a contrast word. It's
Yep,
more okay.
because it's like the opposite, right? It's saying that this is now similar, but yep, good job.
When considering the expansion of literacy as a century, when considering the expansion of literacy a century later, James refuses to attribute it to technological transformations, but appears to see the two phenomena as independent determinants of the growth of certain types of literary product.
Okay.
So it seems like they're it could be James Watt. I don't know if they're saying the same person, but it seems like he's saying that. So I mean, refuses is a strong word there, but
So
like is it? Oh yeah, sorry.
so sorry. What were you gonna say?
It seems like James is doubling down on saying that um, technology and the growth of literature are not related, and he's doubling down that it's probably the social change by itself and not technology did not have any influence.
Let's see, right? So um so Watt doesn't think that it's technology that causes this, but growth of a reading public, right? Um, as being, I mean, I didn't really talk about this, but as being fundamental to the literary innovation. So, so we, Watt agrees that there's literary innovation happening, literary change or literary developments all mean the same thing, or expansion of literature also means the same thing. Um, so Watt thinks that it's due to this growth of the reading public. Um, and then we have James, and if we're using a different name here, I would say that it wouldn't make sense for them to use, like, if the person's name was James Watt, for them to say Watt in one sentence and then to say James in another sentence. But I think that there's a guy, uh, literally the person who made, like the
Light bulbs or something? Or-
yeah, like the unit for
Oh,
Watt,
oh, James Watt. Okay.
is named James Watt. So I think that that can make it confusing for us since we may see that uh as like a kind of like it could be like some outside info that can like negatively affect us.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first read it, I remember thinking that too. Like it's a bit of a coincidence, right? That we're saying Watts and James and whatever, but really we normally don't see, maybe not even normally. Like I don't think I've ever seen like an essay or piece of writing that will use someone's last name and first name like in the same, piece of thing that's written. So that's one thing. That's one way of maybe thinking, okay, that they're not the same person. But more importantly, we want to see if we can see if they're the same person based on what they're saying, right? Um, and what is James saying?
He's he's saying that uh, the he's like almost like anti-technology. He says this growth. He's just saying there is no relationship between the technology and the literature. Like there's no relationship that's causing this growth, and they're just completely separate.
Now, what was Watt saying?
Uh, Watt was saying something very similar. I'm using that word similarly. He was saying uh, that it was because of social change and not technological change.
Okay.
So it's almost like he's saying something similar in the sense.
So
Yeah.
show me where James is talking about the social change.
Okay. He doesn't. Okay, so he doesn't actually. I guess he doesn't explicitly say it. He's just saying they're independent.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. So he does. Okay. Okay. So it's a similar statement, but not explicitly saying or said in the passage. So
Mm-hmm. So we can say that Watt, he disagrees with the paragraph one statement that, so the paragraph one statement about the novel is saying that the novel is the rise of the novel is due to technological change, right? And then Watt is saying that the rise of the novel is not due to a technological change, but due to what we can say is a social change, right? But then James also, so similarly, James also disagrees that it's due to a technological change, right? Right? Because we say
yeah,
similarly when considering the expansion of literacy, aka, more people, more of a reading public, right? He refuses to say that it's due to technological change, right? So he's similar to Watt in that he's saying that it's not due to a technological change, but unlike Watt, he's not saying that it's due to a social change, like a growth of a reading public, right? So he's similar to Watt in that he also disagrees that it's due to a technological change. But unlike Watt, he's not saying that it's due to a social change. He's just saying that they're independent, right? So we could say James, also refuses to say that it's due to technology, but he's not saying that it's due to growth of a reading public or something like a social change. He's seeing the two phenomena, right, as independent determinants of the growth of certain types of literary products. So Watt and James are similar in that they don't think that the rise of the novel or, expansion of literacy is due to technology. They both are similar in that they agree that it's not due to technological change. However, Watt thinks that it's due to a social change, but James does not think that it's due to a social change.
That could be a question potentially.
Yep. So so yeah, so we want to be aware of the arguments and then who's making what argument, right? And that can be pretty tricky when you see words like similarly, but I think that this first paragraph gives us a kind of framework to see things like, so what can also help you could be like, okay, tech, um, lit, and social. And we can kind of think of things like as these as different categories because you have some people, right, in paragraph one says that social causes lit and tech changes, right? And we have another group that says that tech causes the change in lit and social, right? And then we have Watt, which is saying, oh, sorry. And then we also have someone saying that the rise of the novel is an example of tech causing the change in lit and social. And then we say that Watt disagrees that it's due to tech, but he says that it's due to the social. So Watt would be like this, someone who thinks that social change can lead to a change in lit as well as a change in tech, right? Um, but James here is saying that they're not related. Like James also agrees with Watt in that it's not due to a technical change. So he disagrees with this, but he also is not saying that it's due to a social change. So he disagrees with Watt as well. He's saying his own thing, which is that they are independent. Um, so okay, so we can write. So now if we think about what we can write for our map for paragraph two, we can say, so I'm going to put an arrow, like a caret or whatever, to kind of indicate that I'm talking about, or I'm referring to what was immediately said prior, and saying, and then I'll say that Watt says that rise of novel not due to tech change, but due to social change. And then I can say James, also disagrees that it's, also says that it's not due to tech change, but he doesn't think that it's due to, so maybe I'll say not due to tech change nor social change, but that this is independent these are things that are happening in a manner that is independent um, of, I guess, like the social change, the technological change, the literary change are independent things that, and one is not causing the other to. So I wrote an arrow to the above to say that Watt says that, oh yeah, maybe I'll put a CW to mean contrast word, but yeah, arrow to the above, saying that Watt thinks that the rise of the novel is not due to the technological change, but that it's due to a social change. Maybe I should have put like in parentheses like growth of reading public. I'll just put that like there. So okay, so Watt is saying that the novel is not due to a technological change, but due to the growth of a reading public, which is a social change. James also like is with Watt in that he's saying that it's also that the novel is also not due to a technological change, but he's different from Watt in that he's not saying that it's due to a social change either. And he just thinks that they are independent. Like one thing, like social change can happen, technological change can happen, literary change can happen, but they do not have to be related.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I really liked how you like from this sentence here,
Mhm.
like I guess the double AMC is not going to be so nice, right? Because it says not technological change, but
Uh-huh.
I liked how you picked up that it said that it's probably due to social change, but they don't obviously explicitly say it. They're not going to make it that easy
Yeah,
for you.
yeah.
But
So that's why it kind of goes back to what I did here, where I just in paragraph one, I was able to see that there's three like things. Like there's a technological aspect, there's a literary aspect, and there's a social aspect. And there's many different people who think different things. Like some people think social change causes the change in lit and tech. Some people think tech change causes the change in lit and social. Um, but then we have James who thinks that they're independent. One doesn't really cause the other two. Um, but yeah, yeah. What you said about AMC not being like nice in this regard, like usually they'll if you don't understand something right away, a lot of times they'll tell you things after that serve as elaboration that can help us figure that out. So when we read this orange stuff, we didn't really know what that meant, but reading this, so contrast word not technological must mean that this orange stuff is saying that it's due to a technological change. But yeah, so far what we're doing here is and this is kind of like an annoying passage, but this is a good example of that kind of like maybe like one of the first lessons to learn in cars uh is that really what you're doing is you're trying to figure out, okay, what are the arguments and then who is making which argument. And that's what we're likely going to see for this passage. But yeah, it can be a good exercise to practice, who's saying what. Um, and yeah. And so, and then also like putting things into these three categories can also help. Mhm.
okay.
And then also like maybe like one last thing. So like if
Yeah.
James thinks that they're independent, that must mean by definition that they are not dependent. Whereas Watt is saying the rise of the novel is dependent on that social change, growth of a reading public, right? So, so yeah, so far people will say that that they are dependent in different ways. But James is not viewing it that way. He's not viewing it as dependent, but that they're independent. That they,
So like
yeah,
there's like no X and Y. Like there's no independent variable, dependent variable, but
yeah, yeah. That
okay.
they're going to be doing their own things, you know. And we don't really know how, but yeah, he doesn't want to like just oh, maybe James thinks that it's oversimplification to think that it has to be one thing that causes the other stuff and whatnot.
Got it.
Hmm.
Okay, so now we have a third person here,
Yep.
or not, or, yeah, third person.
Mhm.
So Altic takes the relationship farther. Now we have a quotation. Everybody knows that in the 19th century, the number of English readers and therefore the production of the press multiplied spectacularly. Unquote.
Okay, what is he saying here?
So he's making a strong argument here. He says everybody. He's so it seems like he's taking James into Watts and then, or I'm sorry, it seems like Altic is taking James's argument even farther.
Okay.
So everybody knows that the 19th century, the number of English readers. So he's just saying how it looks like he's talking about social change because a lot of people are reading, which causes the press to increase. So it doesn't seem like it's James's um, argument. It seems more so in line with Watts's argument,
Yep, yep.
which is a little bit trippy.
Yeah, yeah. Because the thing is that um because like this so like this part, expansion of literacy, that's the same thing as growth of the reading public, right?
Okay.
So in other words, same thing as social change, right? And so James refuses that. So when we say that he sees the two phenomena as independent, like one of the phenomena that he sees as independent is technological transformations, but the other one is expansion of literacy. Like that's why it's like the similar part because that's the same thing as growth of the reading public, right? So James sees that like or at least agrees that yes, there's a growth of a reading public, aka expansion of literacy, right? Because I just want to make sure that you see that because I kind of didn't talk about it, but it's not saying like expansion of literature, but he's saying expansion of literacy, which means more people who are able to learn to read, right? And if we have more people who are able to read, then at least Watt thinks that means that there's going to be more of the novel, right? But James thinks that they're independent. And then Altic talks about the same relationship, which is the relationship between like the social change aspect of growth of a reading public or growth or expansion of literacy, along with technology. Um, and so he's saying like, yeah, if the number of uh, English readers went up, and that means the productions of the press, um, which I guess it could be a technological thing, um, you know, went up as well. So, okay. And if we didn't get that right away from this quote, there will likely be some elaboration that will help us see what they mean. Okay.
Okay. And that sounds, I guess, is Richard seems like they're about to elaborate now.
Yep.
That is, comma, Altic seems to see. seems to see such technological innovations as the high-speed printing press, comma, techniques for the reproduction of photographs and illustrations, and typesetting machines for newspapers as a response to the demand of the reading public. So it seems like a supply and demand sort of um, explanation. So more readers is causing this increase in the technological innovations.
Yeah, so now let's think about it in the context of this stuff here, right? So, so like,
Uh,
yeah, let's see if Altic, so far we have everyone except James that can fit in this thing that I made here. So, um, so what is Altic kind of saying here then?
um, I'll take like I would have starting off
Hmm.
like kind of starting off social, then
Hmm.
going to lit, then to tech, kind of
Hmm.
like this way.
Yeah. So he's saying something similar to what, right? He's saying that tech innovations, right, were a response to this growth of the reading public, right?
Correct. So like reading public would be X, and then Y would be technological innovations or something. I don't know. It's a
Oh
better
yeah.
way to put it.
So when I drew this X here, I know I used X over here to mean X, but when I drew this X, I actually meant not that. But
Okay.
but what I really mean here is that so Watt thinks that social is what leads to a change in tech and lit, right? And I'll write this. Paragraph one said in terms of the novel that technology is what caused the development of lit and that social kind of change. And then James thinks that everything is separate. No, like you can't say one is causing the other. And now Altic, what's he saying?
He's saying that social
Hmm.
is is driving um, uh, tech.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, yeah.
Perfect. Good. So he's kind of similar to Watt in that way. Good. So yeah, so he's saying this quote, and the quote says that um that there's a larger number, I guess, of English readers in the 19th century, and therefore, that word therefore means that because of this increase in the number of English readers, that the productions of the press went up. So they made more literature uh, because we have more people who can read. Um, and so if we didn't get that from the quote, it's fine because then they say by elaborating, right? Oh, and then by the way, like so like this first sentence would be new idea. And then the second sentence is going to be same idea because we're talking about Altic. Um, but it'll be same idea elab. And you'll see that for most paragraphs, you'd see like first paragraph would be like new idea, and the rest would be like same idea elab. So you're going to see a lot of elab, same idea. So that can help you figure out what the argument is if you didn't get it from like the quote. So here we're saying the quote, but if we didn't get that, we have same idea in the second sentence, same idea. elaboration, and they're saying that Altic sees tech innovations, and we have examples. And you know what? One of the examples is the printing press. So maybe now we know what they mean by press. Because at first, because we saw that word used a lot, right? Um, like, and maybe at first there could be confusion. Like, do they mean like news? Because we think of that as press, but if they're talking about technological change, that could be the printing press, right? Which can make it so that it's easier to make things like the novel, right? Um, so now we know what they mean by press. So when we see the word press, like productions of the press, that's, in other words, a technological change. But Altic is saying that the technological changes are a response to this reading public. And so he's basically saying something similar to what Watt is saying. So for paragraph 3, we can say Altic, says that reading growth, reading public, social causes tech like development. Um, and maybe in parentheses, I would put like maybe like printing press or something like that, just so we kind of know what they mean by press. But, but yeah, so paragraph 3, Altic is saying that the growth of the reading public, social change. And when I use these arrows, I mean like caused by this, right? Or caused this rather. So social change caused tech change, like the printing press. Um, and that's what Altic believes. Any questions so far?
No, I think
Okay.
that's good. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay. So now we have some more people.
Yeah.
Okay. So Febre and Martin. Two, and considering the rise of the book, point out that a new reading public preceded the invention of the printing press.
Okay. What are we saying here?
They're saying that the rise of the printing press,
When they say the rise of the book,
oh,
what do they mean by book?
like the interest, maybe the interest in reading.
Kind of.
The book.
So the rise of the book, right? What have we been talking about so far in terms of the rise of something?
Um, like the rise of reading and like print, like um, oh sorry, the novel, the novel.
Novel, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
sorry.
So, so yeah, you see how you want to be like able to see when they say book that they mean the novel, right? Um, because we've been saying that, right? Rise of the novel, right? Advent of the novel, right? That's like the example that we're using. Good, good. And so these guys, um, so when they're considering the rise of the book, when they mean that, they mean rise of the novel, they point out that a new reading public preceded the invention of the printing press. What do you think that statement is saying?
It's it almost seems to be kind of contradicting. some of the prior statements now, because it seems like these guys are saying now the uptick in technology, uptick in the printing press, um, that increase happened way before, and that people were
Wait, say that again?
they were saying that are they saying that like the increase in the printing press, like the uptick in the technology, um, that didn't happen as a result of like the sorry, I'm not wording this right. So there was an increase in reading and social change, and that happened way before the increase of the printing press and technology.
All right.
Is that what they're saying here?
So, so yeah, what now you said that that was like going against something?
It seems to yeah, it seems like they're like almost saying that there's like not a relationship anymore. So it seems to be kind
Well,
of con
so so okay, let's see, right? Um, so when considering the rise of the novel, the February and March, I'm just gonna call them that, uh, are saying that what? What are they saying?
they're saying that the rise of the novel
Hmm.
the interest in reading like the social change
Hmm.
happened before this all this technology stuff
Yep.
happened. And so it's for me, like as we were mapping out the passage, I was kind of seeing a lot of these guys say that, oh, because of the social change, because of the uptick in reading, that's causing an increase in the
Hmm.
printing press and technology. But now these guys, February, March, are saying otherwise.
Oh, wait. Say so you're saying so okay, so Feb March are saying that the social change happened before the tech change.
Yes.
Now, but what is that? And you're saying that that's like different or going against something? Like, what is it
If you,
going? Yep.
because it feels like in the people prior, they were saying that okay, you had this social uptick, social change, and
Hmm.
that caused the technological jump in the printing press. But then I feel like I'm reading here with February, March. They're saying that there was already a jump in the social change and reading more before the whole printing press.
So how's that different though?
Um, it seems to kind of reverse the cause and effect. Like,
Well, so what's the cause and effect of so um okay, so let's see. Okay, so what is okay, so Watt and Altic, what are they saying?
um, Altic is saying they're independent. Um,
Mm.
like
Nope.
they're not, they're,
You can look at our map.
oh, okay, sorry. Oh, okay. So they're saying that Altic is saying the growth of the reading public, the the growth of the reading public caused the tech development in the
Okay.
printing press.
And what did Watt say?
And then Watt said the rise of the book or the novel is not due to tech change, but due to social change.
So Watt and Altic are saying something similar, right?
Yes, yes,
That the reading public happened, that could be the thing that caused the tech development.
correct.
Now, Feb March, what are they saying here?
Yeah, it's throwing me off because they're saying um, that people are getting excited about reading even even before. Oh, okay. So they're just saying that okay, all they're saying is okay, maybe I'm reading too much into it. All they're saying is that uh, there was an excitement in reading. There was an increase in social change before.
Hmm.
Okay, that before the technology took off. So it's not necessarily okay. Okay,
That would be more supporting Watt and Altic,
yeah, yeah,
because
okay,
that could be like, you know, like evidence of like that could even be like, I mean, that since it's written here, it might not be a question, but there could be a question if that wasn't written. There could be a question that's like, okay, what? Because there's always like the questions that are like, okay, we're going to give you new information. How does this new information affect the arguments? And let's say that the question was like, let's say that in whatever the 18th century or 19th century, whatever time period here, that the growth of the reading public happened before the invention of the printing press. Whose arguments would this support? Whose arguments would this weaken, right? And it would support the people who are saying that the growth of the reading public caused the tech innovations, right? And it would go against the people who think that the tech innovations caused the social change, right? Because if you're saying that the tech innovations is what led to the growth of a reading public, then if the fact is true that the new reading public happened before the printing press, that would contradict people who say that the technology is what causes that um, increase in like the reading public, right? So Feb March seems like what they're saying would be in line with what Watt or Altic is saying. And what they're saying is that the growth of the reading public happened, well, in order for the growth of the reading public to influence the growth of technology, it must happen before new technology, right?
yes, yeah,
Let's say that it said that the printing press came out before the growth of a new reading public. That information, if that's true, that would weaken or contradict what Altic and Watt are saying, right? Because uh how can you say that social change caused tech change if the printing press was invented before we have the growth of the reading public, right?
mhm,
So if they're saying that the um the growth of the reading public happened before the invention of the printing press, that would like support the idea that it's the social change that caused a technological change, and it would weaken the argument that the technological change caused the social. Because if technology caused social, why do you see the social stuff happen before the technology stuff, right?
Is this a supporting word, or is this, do you look at the word to, or is that anything to, or not
Oh,
really?
yeah, I guess like that could just be like we kind of see variants of that. For instance, we see Altic takes the relationship further. So what's that relationship? The relationship between um, expansion of literacy or growth of the reading public or social change, and how that's related to technological change. So Altic takes that relationship further, and he says that the reading public, growth of a reading public, happened before the technological changes, right? And they're saying it because they're saying that the technological stuff happened as a response to the growth in the reading public. If it happens as a response to the reading public will either be the cause of the tech changes or at the very least happen before, right? So here with Feb March, they're saying that like sure the word to, right? But I think what's more important here is that if they're saying that the growth of the reading public happened before this technological innovation or change, then that would be more supporting the idea that the social change happened before the tech change, right?
Makes sense.
Hmm.
Okay.
And yeah, so now this is a new idea because it's Feb March, but when I read that, I'm thinking, okay, what do you mean by that? And then we'll see some elab. So yeah, continue.
From the late 13th century, they say, the new bourgeoisie class, particularly lawyers and merchants, constituted such a public, requiring faster methods of reproducing written works than those of scribes and illuminators.
All right, what are we saying here?
It's like some type of evidence.
Hmm.
Um, so they're saying this class, they they're kind of giving evidence to support why there was an increase in the social change of reading.
Hmm. Yep. So now we're giving some, I guess, information or support for, and that's why I'm using orange. So now we're just supporting the argument from Feb March that are saying that the new reading public preceded the invention of the printing press. And so, this new class consisting of lawyers and merchants are this new reading public, like people, this new class of people that prior to this time didn't exist because for most of humanity, people didn't really know how to read. I mean, that's outside information, so don't use that. But we are saying that this new reading public happened before the invention of the printing press, and they're saying that this has happened since the late 13th century. Um, Involved these groups of people who constitute when they say constituted such a public, they're saying like when they say such a public, the public that we've been talking about, aka the ones that can read. So the new reading public consists of lawyers and merchants, and they there's more of a demand, as you said before, for the written word. Um, and not just more demand for it in general, but more of a demand for it, meaning that they required faster methods of reproducing written works than those of scribes and illuminators. And, you don't have to know like all the details here, but what is a scribe? Like, you can think about it in the context of like a medical scribe, but historically, like, what would you say? Like a scribe? What's the purpose of like, yeah, a scribe?
Maybe they were like writing down history, like or like following around like rich people around and writing.
So, I mean, does a scribe write their own stuff?
I think they were probably lower class and kind of writing stuff for.
Oh, I just mean, would a would a scribe write their own like books or whatever?
Probably not. They'd probably be doing it for the author
So they
or
would,
somebody.
so like they would be, I guess think about before we had, because today we can just use not just like a printing press, we could use like a Xerox machine or some way to copy it. But prior to that, the only way, like if you have a book like the Bible or something, the only way to get more copies of that Bible would be literally writing it and making a copy. And that's what scribes would do. They would write down like a book that already exists to make a copy of that book, right? And that was fine. That's how it happened throughout history. right? But in this time period where we suddenly have an uptick in people who know how to read, there's going to be a higher demand for written works that the work that scribes like are too slow to do. So that could invite this technological innovation where someone makes the printing press and it's like, okay, now we can make these book copies of the book super fast. And since we have a lot more people who know how to read now who want this book, we can use the printing press to get more copies of the book faster so we can sell it to all these people who want it. Uh, whereas prior to that, it would be like we only have like 5 copies of the book that took us 20 years for scribes to write it down, right? So, so, so yeah, we're talking about the same thing in terms of kind of like what Altic and Watt was saying, that the reading growth of a reading public is what led to perhaps this technological innovation. Um, and we kind of see that kind of as an example of that. There's just a high demand for these books, which means that's not being met by the work of scribes. And so they'll probably say something that will say like that's why the printing press was made, and the printing press made it so that you can make copies of books super fast. And that could be an example of this social change leading to a technological change, right?
Yeah, I mean, this seems to like finally answer my question. Like, if I'm trying to keep myself like actively engaged,
Hmm.
like the whole time I was reading it, I was like wondering why was there uptick in, or like what was causing this uptick in reading? It seems like they finally answer that question, so to speak.
Oh, when you say that, tell me what you mean. Um, because the uptick of the reading seems to be just due to this growth of like this class that consists of lawyers and merchants who must be literate in order to be a lawyer or a merchant, right? And since we have a higher amount of people in that class, there's going to be a higher demand for books and not just a higher demand for books, but
See you later.
a higher demand for making copies of books that scribes are simply too slow to do. And that could invite technological innovation. Because let's say there wasn't this growth of a reading public, right? Let's say that like 2% of the population knows how to read, which I think is the case for most of history. Again, outside information, so don't really use that. But I'm just thinking like, okay, if there wasn't a growth in a reading public, why would there be people who are trying to get copies of books made faster, right? Like if most people can't read, then the scribes should be fine doing what they're doing, right? But if suddenly a bunch of people can read, then we need books made at a rate that scribes can't meet, because we have suddenly a lot more people who know how to read. So it's going to take too long for scribes to make all the copies of the books for all these new people who can read. So that can perhaps lead to a technological innovation like making the printing press, where you can make books and copies of books super fast.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So faster methods than those of scribes.
Perfect. Did we go? I don't want to bite into your time. Did we go
No, no,
into?
I have free time.
Okay.
What about you?
Yeah, no, I'm available.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. 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 So February and March's emphasis on the relatively autonomous development of printing and the spread of reading indicates a refusal to collapse the history of the book into either technological or social determinism.
Okay. So now we're going in a direction that might be a little different now. Or different from some people, but maybe closer to one person. But yeah, what do you think this sentence is saying, Ben?
It's a strong word there for refusal.
Hmm.
It's indicates the collapse of the history of the book into either technological or social. It seems like again they're talking about this kind of technological or social change, and it's like they're saying that it seems like almost again like they're giving evidence that the increase in the print the uptick in the technology or printing press can't fall into one category of technology or social change.
Uh-huh. So let's think a bit by what they could mean by determinism, like technological determinism, social determinism. What do you think that could mean?
Social. No, I don't know what they mean by collapse of the history book.
Hmm.
Collapse of the history book.
Hmm.
It, yeah, all I'm reading into it is just. So you were saying, oh, what do they mean by technological, social? Is that what you're saying, or
Oh, just the
determinism?
determinism part.
Oh, social determinism.
Hmm.
So, social determinism. It seems like so much of social change and like um, I'm kind of relating it to social change, to social determinism.
So let's see. So I know I was saying Feb, March seemed to be saying something similar to Altic and Watt, but we're saying something different here. Maybe this can help.
Autonomous, like independent almost,
Mhm.
or yeah,
Yeah. So,
it almost seems like what
hmm
James was saying.
hmm yeah, perfect. So, despite this stuff that he said about this growth of the reading public happened before the invention of the printing press, I guess you could still say that because I guess it could be a fact, right? Um, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, that they think that one causes the other. Um, and yeah, autonomous just like up here with James, independent. Because so far we've been saying, so like Watt and Altic, they're not saying that these are autonomous or independent, right? They're saying that the growth of the reading public caused this type of change in technology, right? Um, so that must mean that the change in technology is dependent on the social change, right? So, so yes, autonomous, good that you're able to see that that's similar to independent and similar to therefore what James is saying. So now that must mean that, okay, and then they're saying that this is also like if you think that they're autonomous, that it's not going to be either technological determinism or social determinism. So maybe the social determinism is what Watt and Altic are saying, right? Maybe it means that the social situation is what determines the technological and literary, right? And then technological determinism probably means that the tech things, right, causes the change in social and literary stuff, right?
Okay.
So maybe that's what the determinism thing means. So technological determinism can mean that technology is what determines how the literature changed and how social things changed, right? And social determinism could mean that the social change determines that technological and literary change. So maybe Watt and Altic, we can say their beliefs are social determinism because they think that the social caused the tech and lit. And the people who think that the tech causing the social and lit would be the tech determinists. But yeah, Feb March seems to be that word autonomous is just like the word independent, and that's similar to James. So yeah, Feb March uh, is basically saying that yeah, it's not due to like one thing causing the other thing. They're independent. Yep.
And I guess I even missed that because technically they're saying technological determinism or
Yeah.
social determinism, right? They
hmm
just didn't put that in there, right?
hmm
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, so
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
we're gonna leave it
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
like that until we get to the this, and then you're
Okay.
gonna screenshot it, and then we'll do the rest of
Oh, okay.
that.
Okay.
But good. Okay, you can continue.
Typical of their views is this statement. All things considered, the work of copyists and scriveners paved the way for the printers. On the eve of the appearance of the first printed texts, a growing demand for books was obvious, particularly among the emergent social classes.
Okay.
Uh, so this is like a supply and demand, and copyists and scriveners. I'm thinking scribes,
Mm-hmm.
maybe what you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yeah, that's kind of what preluded like the old technology before the
Mm-hmm.
demand for the new technology.
Yep. So yeah, what can we say for this paragraph?
Um, this just seems like evidence backing up February and March, essentially. Yeah, this doesn't seem like anything like special as far as this, but it just seemed just kind of reiterating the what the scribes are doing. So,
So we can write FM social in parentheses lawyers merchants. That's that social change of, increase in the reading public. So that preceded the printing press, but demand for a faster reproduction method of books was needed. But ultimately, they do not believe in either tech determinism or social determinism. They believe that they are independent. And that's a tough pass paragraph because it seems like if they're saying that the growth of the reading public happened before the printing press, like until this basically, whoops, like until we got to this sentence, I was pretty much thinking that these guys believe in what Watt and Altic believe, but we want to be careful because they're just saying that the new reading public preceded the invention of the printing press. And it's very easy to kind of take that to mean that the new reading public caused that invention of the printing press. But ultimately, I guess that's not what it means. It just means that the reading public existed, growth in the reading public existed before the printing press. And yeah, ultimately, that doesn't mean anything. And that FM are really just saying that this is not, these are independent things. It's not something like technological determinism, or social determinism, which is like what Altic and Watt would believe in. So he's more so similar to James in that he views them uh, as independent determinants. Oh yeah, and then we have the word determinants there, right?
oh yeah.
So so yeah, good. So yeah, why don't you take a screenshot of um like the map so far as well as what we like highlighted so far in the passage?
No, I'm a Mac guy. I'm using a PC. Is it print? Is it just print screen, or is that what it is? Or
Here, I can do that for you.
okay, sorry, I need to get better at PC. Sorry.
Yep. So I put it in the chat. Do you know how to save it from the chat?
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
You got it?
Yeah, got it.
So now I'm gonna just erase this because now we're gonna scroll down and new stuff. Yep. Perfect.
Now, you don't care about this stuff. Like when you're starting off a Cars passage, you don't care about this, right?
So I might be wrong because I don't necessarily remember, but I don't know if that stuff will be included on the actual MCAT.
Okay. Okay.
So I could be wrong. I mean, it's been a while since I've taken the test, but you know, um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it'll be on the actual MCAT. So yeah, I would say not to use that.
Um,
So yeah, so
so
we
yeah,
got that. So yeah, yep,
in considering the development of television, Williams also opposes the idea of technological determinism. It is especially a characteristic of the communication systems that all were foreseen. before the crucial components of the developed systems had been discovered.
So okay, so we're saying now in the context of television rather than the novel, right? Because prior to this, we were really talking about the novel, which we also use the word book for. But yeah, now we're talking about television, and we have a new guy, Williams, and that he also opposes the idea of, in particular, tech determinism. Uh, Good.
Um, and he gives a quote.
Hmm. And what's that quote saying?
It seems like he's saying, it seems like he's saying something about how
Hmm?
there was like social came before technology again. It's,
Yeah, maybe, but they're probably gonna elab on it afterwards and make that's gonna be a lot easier to understand.
yeah. So some yes. I guess what I'm gathering from this is that like technology, there was some type of driver for technology, right? Because I'm inferring that technology is the technological determinism is it starts from technology and then kind of chains from there. But
Hmm.
since he's opposing technological determinism,
Hmm.
technology won't be the driver, the
Hmm.
primary driver.
Yep.
Uh, in no way did the new medium create new social conditions.
So we see this word medium again, right? What do you think that is like a placeholder for? Think about like the options being the stuff in this
Like
thing here. Yeah.
like I guess that the medium could be like radio or newspaper or like press or
Would that be like a tech thing, a lit thing, a social thing?
a tech thing.
Yep. So either we look back at paragraph one where we said print medium, and we didn't know at the time, but then we know that that's different from Watt, who thinks that it's not due to tech change. So the print medium is just an example of a tech change. But also here, if they're, oops, here, if we're talking about opposing tech determinism, and then we're saying new medium did not create new social conditions, that new medium could just be a way of saying this technological change. And if this person opposes tech determinism, and then we're saying in no way did this new medium create new social conditions, that new medium must be like a placeholder to mean a tech change. Mhm.
Okay. And also the order, right? They're saying
Yep.
it's like they're doubling down. So
Mhm.
opposing tech determinism, and then they're doubling down, saying again that the new medium did not perceive social change. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know exactly yet if I would say that it didn't precede because in the previous paragraph, we kind of made that kind of mistake, or at least, I did. When I first saw the precede, I thought that that would tell you something about cause and effect, but it didn't because Feb March were saying that something that the growth in the reading public preceded the printing press. And initially, I thought that to mean that it the growth of the reading public caused the printing press, but it ended up not being that. So preceding does not necessarily mean that it created the next thing. So, but yeah.
The decisive transformation of the industrial production with its new social forms, which had emerged from a long period of capital accumulation, created new needs along with new possibilities, and the communications revolution, including television, was its outcome. So, hmm. So this one I'm a little confused about the order and stuff. And
Mhm. So we know it can't be tech stuff causing other stuff, right?
uh,
So so now maybe it's saying, yep, social stuff created. So that tells me something because it's not saying it precedes. Because if it precedes it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it causes it, right? But here they're saying pretty much that it's causing it, right? So it seems like, and then television was the outcome. So, okay, so we know that Williams is opposed to tech determinism. And it seems like what's being said at the end is that social stuff resulted in this tech change, but I don't know for certain if that means that he believes in social determinism. Oh, and that's also a word that we can now apply to Watt and Altic, right? If they think that social stuff caused the other stuff, they would be considered social determinists, right? And if they're saying that Williams opposes tech determinism, I'm also just thinking, why wouldn't they say that he also opposes social determinism? Because so far we've been talking about both of them together. So I might be jumping the gun here, but it seems like so we're certain that Williams does not believe in tech determinism. I'm not certain if that means that he believes in social determinism, but he is saying that social forms created new things that resulted in this TV in the television being made. So not sure how I would I'm not sure if I would go as far as to say social determinist that Williams is a social determinist. So I'll just say that okay, for TV, Williams against tech determinism. Um, and then maybe I'll just say social change. Maybe resulted in. I mean, they're saying communicate. Well, maybe I will say. Hmm, I'm just gonna write. Okay, for TV, Williams is against tech determinism, and he may be a social determinist. And I just put maybe because of the things that I said. Like either because we say that he opposes tech determinism literally. Um, they didn't say that he opposes social determinism, and usually in this passage they talk about both. And then they are saying that the new social forms um, created new needs, and television was its outcome. So,
How do you so see, how do you classify capital accumulation? Sorry, because so
um,
did that cause this?
I guess that's what causes the new social forms. So let's see. Let's see. Okay. Industrial production could be the tech change, social form, social change. Social change came from a long period of capital accumulation, and that created new needs with new possibilities. Possibilities could be like new answers to those needs. And then this communications revolution, which could be a technological revolution that includes TV. So, so what I wrote for P5, for TV, Williams against tech determination, I'm 100% sure on, but I'm not sure if he's a social determinist. So I put a maybe there. Um, but I'm really debating on whether I should put that there or not. Um, but I'll leave it like that for now. Maybe social determinist, but definitely, not a tech determinist. So this could be a weird thing like FM, because they said that, but you see how for FM they said that they don't believe in tech or social determinism, but for Williams, they're just saying that he's against tech. So that's why I'm leaning towards Williams perhaps being a social determinist. But yeah, we do the best that we can do.
Um, in her discussion of the oh in her who's her in her discussion of the influence of the printing press. Okay, so Eisenstein considers another aspect of the interplay between technology and society. Quotes, yet the fact remains that once presses were established in numerous European towns, the transforming powers of print did not begin to take effect. Oh, that's a long quote. But, okay. Should I read it all together or should we break it down?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you could break it down so far. Yeah.
Okay.
So so Eisenstein or Stein or whatever, talks about some other aspects of this relationship, interplay I'm equating to relationship between tech and society. And yeah. And then yet the fact remains that once presses were established in numerous European towns, the transforming powers of print did begin to take effect. Um, okay.
The the new shops themselves interacted with the urbanites who received them in a manner that produced occupational mutations and intellectual regroupment. Here again, one may agree that even with acting as agents of change, early printers could be effective only in combination with other forces. Occupational mutations. I don't know, like new occupations or something. So I guess Eisenstein is saying something about how um, there is some type of relationship between technology and social change,
Okay.
but it's a different type of dynamic that's going on.
Mhm.
And there could be some like not confounding factors, but other variables at play that haven't been mentioned before.
Mhm. So far, uh, whose opinion is that most similar to?
Um, I
Because
would say paragraph one, like the because Watt was saying like they were
so
uh,
Watt saying that social change is the cause. So Watt could be considered a social determinist.
mhm.
Um, Altic also says social, so Altic could also be considered a social determinist. Um, James and FM are not determinists. Williams is not a tech determinist, might be a social determinist. And Eisenstein.
She seems kind of by herself in this,
Mhm.
but
So,
uh,
yep.
maybe the first paragraph was there
So I guess the first paragraph just didn't give us
specific
any like
theories.
people, right?
Yeah,
So, but I would say that Eisenstein like is not a determinist, right? So is not going to be similar to Watt or Altic, right? Uh, or Williams, but could be one of those people like James or FM that doesn't think that it's that are just not determinists. They're not thinking that one of these things in the columns that I made on the right cause the other stuff. Saying that this is all just in combination with other forces. So kind of like her own thing, her own perspective. So I just wrote Eisenstein, not a determinist, but believes that a combination of forces like it cause the interplay between, all these things, tech, soc, lit.
got it.
Mhm.
Got it. I guess I didn't even think about this when I probably was starting the passage. Okay, theorists. So you're
Mhm.
probably going to have different theories. So all
Yeah.
these kinds of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is a good exercise in identifying arguments and who is making the arguments. Um, and the other thing that we look for is support. And we really haven't had much. When I say support, I mean uh like hardcore data, right? Um, like fact remains that once presses were established in numerous European towns, uh, transformative powers of print began to take place. Which towns, right? Like what, a lot of this, like, so like that can also help. Like we don't have a lot of orange here, so because they're always going to ask questions like, which of the following assertions is not backed up by evidence, or this new evidence that they can give you, would that strengthen or weaken which arguments, blah, blah, blah. So those are like the three things that you always want to be aware of. Like arguments, what are the arguments? Who's making the arguments? And what support, if any, is given for the arguments.
and is this could they also do like infer what does the author infer by occupational limitations? Do they still do that stuff? But
Wait, what's up?
what is like inferring like what does the author kind of like mean?
Oh
Like
yeah,
what
yeah.
type
The questions, yeah, they could be like, what does the author mean when he says, or she or whatever says, occupational mutations. And those would always be like the answer choices would be like dictionary definitions, uh, which will be wrong because it's going to be asking you what do they like the author or the person mean when they say occupational mutations. Um, but yeah, what do you think they mean by that?
Um, I'm thinking it created just like new, like kind of new jobs,
Mhm.
like
Yep,
yeah, just essentially, yeah.
yep, yep. So like kind of if I tie it into what FM said was that there's a lot more lawyers and merchants, right? So so it seems like occupational mutations, right, could be so first of all, like okay, if they're saying that presses once they were established in many European towns, we saw the transforming powers of print. And so so the new shops interacted with the urbanites, the people who, uh, I guess, live in the city, and received them, like received the new shops in a manner that produced these changes in like occupations. So that could be change like more people that are lawyers, more people who that are merchants, that kind of thing. So that can mean a change in social, right? So, but it seems like, it's not anything's deterministic, right? It's like uh once these presses were established, we saw these social changes, which means people, you know, there's more people who go into law or trade or whatever. But it seems like there's a lot of factors and stuff that are going on. So, you know, I'm viewing everything that we're reading as either tech or social determinists or people who are not that, and aka people who are just going to be, uh, I guess, thinking that they're independent, right?
Okay. Um, one one undeniable truth is that technological and scientific discoveries never take place in a social vacuum.
What is that saying?
It's saying that like that they kind of like the technological and innovations or um, it's it's dependent on multiple factors. It's never going to just happen
Hmm.
by itself. Like they're saying that
Hmm.
there needs to be a relationship between potentially social.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. They may not be intended to meet a social need in an obvious and direct manner, and they may indeed be the cause of important and far-reaching social transformations. So I guess they're just saying that the relationship is kind of complex.
Hmm.
It's not like A to B. It can be kind of,
Hmm.
you know, uh, yeah. And then the last sentence, but there is every likelihood that scientific, oh, but that's right.
Yeah,
But
I could say that it seems like what they're saying here is that so first they're saying tech discoveries don't take place in a social vacuum, which means that social stuff matters. And then they say that they might actually be the cause of social transformations, which sounds a bit like tech determinism. That then we get our contrast word. So it's not going to be tech determinism. So let's see what it's going to be. Yeah.
Contrast word, but there is every likelihood that scientific inquiry is directed in complex ways by social issues and the needs of those in positions of power.
Mhm.
Okay, so social determinism almost.
So it may start off by looking that way. It says technological discoveries don't take place in a social vacuum, which means or implies that, oh, and then they say it could be the cause of social transformation, social change. It could cause that. So that seems like some type of tech determinism. Um, but then we have our contrast word, and then we're saying that this is all happening in a very complex way that isn't easy for us to say that any type of determinism can work. So I put tech discoveries cannot be totally independent from social change, but contrast word, very complex and not tech or social determinism. And this is a good example of the contrast word giving us some insight into what the author believes. So it seems like the author, does it seem like the author agrees with any of the determinists?
Uh, no, it doesn't. It doesn't seem like he does. It
Mhm.
doesn't.
So it seems like the people who are talking about that are not determinists, like, James, who says that they're independent of one another. Well, I guess James says that they're independent. FM thinks that perhaps they can be independent as well. Eisenstein, though, says because okay, we talked about the determinists and the non-determinists, but now I'm differentiating between the non-determinists. So James, non-determinist, thinks that they're independent. FM, not determinist, thinks that they're independent. Eisenstein, not determinist, but doesn't think that they're independent, thinks that they are dependent in complex ways. And the author seems to be similar to the Eisenstein. Combination with other forces in complex ways that are not easy to collapse into tech determinism, social determinism, or any of that stuff.
Got it.
Mhm. Good. So now what we would do is we would just look for arguments that are mentioned in more than one paragraph, but I'll just kind of like do that fast this time for time's sake. So I would just write perhaps that, okay, there's social versus tech determinism in lit, innovation. Um, but but okay, social versus tech determinism. Also, like believing that this is all independent, people who believe that. And then ultimately the Eisenstein one that it's like a complex combination of forces, and author mostly agrees with this last one. So there's social determinists like Watt and Altic. There's tech determinists like, I don't know if you had a name for anyone, but uh there's that. In lit innovation. But there's also people who think that it's all independent. So like James and FM. Um, and then we have Eisenstein, who thinks that it's like this combination of forces and that it's too complex to say that, one like social determines all the other stuff or tech determines all the other stuff. But it's also not true that they're completely independent of one another. So really they're all like dependent, perhaps, but not in ways that fall into social or tech determinism. It's some complex kind of system of, I think you said like confounding variables. Like it's a lot things, they all matter, but it's not in predictable ways. So I just wrote author mostly agrees with last one, uh, the one that Eisenstein believes. Uh, so I guess we can take that away. So so yeah, there you go. So we have, so this passage was all about uh specific examples of people who believe in social determinism, tech determinism, people who believe that it's all independent, that they're not related, and then Eisenstein, who believes that they are interrelated, but not in simple ways. Um, and that the author mostly agrees with that last one, that it's complex. It's a complex kind of, you know, uh, thing that's happening that we can't, that everything else would oversimplify.
Got
I'll add that too. That agrees last one, meaning other views would overly simple would be oversimplified. Yeah.
got it.
So I'm putting this screenshot in the chat for you to have. And now, yeah, what do you think about that or the way that we did this?
Yeah, no, it's sorry.
Yeah, this
There we
passage
go.
was a lot more complex than a lot of other ones, because we just have so many people that we have to keep track of. But I think it was a good example of a lot of like the really important stuff to do in cars, like identifying our arguments, who's making the arguments, what support, if any, um, as well as putting things in our own words, meant that we can equate things. Like we were able to equate the new medium, as being a technological change. We were able to basically kind of categorize everything as either like a tech or a lit or a social change, and we're also able to determine what's meant by determinism. Um, and yeah, we basically saw a bunch of people who believe in various different things. And ultimately, the closest thing we got from the author is that it's something similar to what Eisenstein believes. So yeah, how do you feel about that?
No, it's good. I mean, it's keeping me actively engaged.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
so
So now, so typically if we have more time, we can kind of go over the questions together, but we don't for this one. So, but what I typically do though is I block the passage out like that. And sometimes I block out the choices of the questions too, just to make sure that you really, really, because I told you the number one thing that people do is they don't really understand like the passage or they don't really understand the question and they just spend their time frantically searching through the passage for words and they play mix and match with the words and the choices. But if you block out the passage, you don't have that reflex of rereading because ultimately you want to read it right the first time. And that's why you take it slow the first time because, measure twice, cut once or whatever, right? You want to get it right the first time such that you don't have to reread it. Because if you reread it, you're wasting time. You're rereading something that you already read that you should have understood that first time. So, yeah. So I would say to try these questions out, block out the passage, and if you need to go back to something, go back to the map. Okay. And yeah, and then try the questions out. And try when you do the questions, like just like maybe like start at A and then evaluate A and see like does this fit? Like does this work? Does it not work? If it doesn't work, I want you and I'll give you like a list of like reasons like the next time we meet or whatever, but we want to like do better than knowing something's a wrong answer. We want to know why it's wrong. So I would say for this question, just like, you read it. Oh, and then rephrase the question. That can also really help to make sure you understand that question. And then sometimes like I'll block out the choices because a lot of times you can kind of come up with your own answer. And when you do that, you're less susceptible to the wrong answers. So, but for this first time, since you're going to do it on your own, that could be hard. So, but yeah, you want to like basically look at A and then, if you think it's right, if you think it's wrong, have a reason for it. And, because you can eliminate choices that are wrong that if you don't know why it's wrong, could be a little risky. So we want to like make sure we have reasons for everything. So we want to have the right reason to eliminate something as being wrong, a right reason to keep something that might be right, and go through like each of the choices in that way. Um, as we approach the questions and um yeah. So I would say to, yeah, try these questions out with the passage blocked. And if you need to go back to anything, just go back to the map, which is what we wrote on the left. And yeah, try these questions out. Um, and yeah, when we meet next, we can kind of like, go over it. Um, and then also that means like in the future, as you do cars on your own, since we now have gone through cars, now you can actually do your own cars work. And I would do it like the same way, like writing a map out. Um, and then what we can do when we review cars, like let's say there's a cars passage that you thought was really difficult, we can review that together, make a map together, and see if the map that you wrote is similar to the map that we wrote together. And from the maps that you write, I can give you feedback and be like, okay, this is good, but this one I would just kind of rephrase in this way. Because it may seem like what we're doing is writing a summary, but we're really not writing a summary. We're not, because a summary is like a objective kind of neutral way of summarizing something. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to write down the arguments. We're all about the arguments in cars. And that's what makes cars difficult, but and what makes cars different from other reading sections of other tests. But now that you know that that's what you're looking for, it's going to affect how you approach these passages because you're going to start to see that, hey, if I'm formulating or if I'm reading something and I see it as an argument, that's exactly what I'm here to do. But if I'm reading something and I'm seeing it as just a bunch of facts or whatever, like that's going to be a sign that you're not doing it in the right way because facts, we basically got like almost no facts from this passage. There's things that are people are arguing, but arguments aren't facts, right? Like arguments by definition can't be facts. There could be facts that can be brought up to support and strengthen arguments, right? But like I said, like over here or whatever, like like this stuff, or even here, right? Or here, right? Like if you go up a little bit, this is saying this up here was saying uh reading public preceded the invention of the printing press. We don't have any facts to back that up. So so yeah, those three things you want to focus on. Argument, who's making the argument, what support, if any, right? Um, but yeah, I would say to yeah, try these questions out and we can kind of go over it when we meet next. And as you like now, so now you can do cars passages yourself and just do it the same way, write the map out, which is what we wrote on the left. And yeah, in the future, whatever, if there's some cars passages that you want to go over together, we can go over it together, make a map, and I can look at your map and see what I would change. Um, but ultimately, that's the approach. Yeah.
And the map I'll be doing on test day too, or is this more so just for practice kind of?
So yeah, so now it's going to be like practicing this. By the time test day comes around, you will have practiced this enough to like internalize it. Because like what you'll get to the point of doing is like kind of what I'm doing with the highlights. Like if you kind of scroll back to the way that it was, you can see that yeah, let's see. Yeah, go up some more. Let's this pink one we want to line up with the button
Ah,
here.
okay.
Yeah. So now if we just read what I highlighted, let's say for this paragraph, I highlighted television, Williams opposes tech innovate determinism, no new medium, new conditions. So that means new medium created the new conditions. That's not true. Um, social forms created television outcome, right? And so what I'm saying here, right, is that when we're considering the television, Williams opposes tech determinism, right? So for TV, Williams against tech determinism, right? And then the rest of this is just the same thing, right? It's just saying things that support that idea that it's not tech determinism. So that's what I wrote there. Then here, Eisenstein, combination of other forces, right? And in my head, I'm saying that this person is not a determinist. So here, Eisenstein, not determinist, but combination of forces, interplay between these three things, right? And then this last paragraph, tech discoveries, never social vacuum. So that means that there's going to be social things that play a role. There could be they could be a cause of social transformations, which would lead me to think tech determinism. But then we have our contrast word, so now it's not going to be tech determinism, and it's ultimately complex. So here I wrote tech discoveries cannot be totally independent from social change, but contrast word, it's very complex and it's not any of these determinism types. So you can kind of see how the highlights kind of function as that pseudo map. So we can get to the point where after you practice the map making enough, you're going to internalize that in the way that you process all the stuff that you read. So when you read things, you're going to be looking at it from that perspective. And so that can be what we get to on test day. And we're going to have a lot of practice with that once we do like phase two, phase three, the practice tests. But for now, it's just accuracy phase, whatever it takes, doesn't matter how long, whatever it takes for you to get the right answers is going to be the priority here. And then it's just going to be doing it faster. But we want to make sure we do it right when we do it slow. Because if you can't get it right when we're doing it slow, doing it faster is just going to make that worse. So, like the saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, basically. So, yep. Any questions?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
So Cool, cool, cool. Okay. So yeah, and you saved the stuff I sent in the chat, the screenshots?
Yes, yes.
All right, awesome. So this is like, let's see, 2 hours, 33 minutes. It could just be 2.5 hours. And this is now recorded, so you get the cheaper rate. So one like 88.
Okay. And I'll try to do once I get past this class, I'll try to do 2 sessions a week just right now while I'm in this class.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I do want to, I think ramp it up, especially as we get closer.
Totally.
But yeah, and then now I have your calendar, so I can kind of do that. So
Yep.
perfect.
Awesome. So it seems like I'm seeing you on Thursday the 10th.
Correct.
Awesome. Great. So I'll see you then. And yeah, now you know how to approach cars so you can do car stuff. And yeah, continue doing the content diagnostic. And then yeah, when we meet next week, we can go over stuff from the content diagnostic and or car stuff.
Perfect.
All right. Awesome. So
Awesome.
yep, I will see you on Thursday and yeah.
Thanks.